Coming up on UGTV, Board of Commission meeting of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
Ebenezer Ministries. But as you please stand, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Shall we pray? Dear Heavenly Father, most gracious Father, we thank you first for this wonderful day. Lord, and we ask your guidance, Lord, and your wisdom be given to the leadership of our unified government and all those who work so hard in our community. In your Son, Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Reverend Kemper. I'd ask the clerk if there are any revisions to tonight's agenda.
There are no revisions.
Thank you. If you would read the statement.
We would like to welcome all present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the Commission are Mayor CEO David Albee, Commissioner Melissa Bynum, at-large District 1, Commissioner Tom Burrows, at-large District 2, Commissioner Gail Townsend, District 1, Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, Commissioner Ann Murguia, District 3, Commissioner Harold Johnson, District 4, Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, Commissioner Angela Markley, District 6, Commissioner James Walters, District 7, and Commissioner Jane Philbrick, District 8. As each petition is called, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before the Commission has three options. 1, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. 2, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. Or 3, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration, together with a statement specifying the reasons for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the Planning and Zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or others, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all of the items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the Mayor will ask if there are any requests to set aside items from the consent agenda. This is your time to stand up and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted on separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We would, however, remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we would appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio. Once the petitioners make their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 3 minutes to state their views. As you come to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. The Mayor and Commissioners are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any item on the Planning and Zoning agenda. So at this time, does any member of the Commission wish to disclose any contact with proponents or opponents on any item on the agenda?
Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you. I've received communication from opponents of A 2018-3, and I've received communication from proponents of PR 2018-19.
Commissioner Bynum.
I had communication with proponents of item A1, number 3155, change of zone, and B1, special use permit, SP 2018-62.
Thank you. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. On the non-consent agenda, I had contact with proponents of PR 2018-5. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. I've had contact with proponents of PR-2018-19.
Thank you. That is all.
I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Under Change of Zone Application, Item 1, 3163, Ronald D. Jury, Revocable Trust, change of zone from C3 Commercial District to M1 Light Industrial and Industrial Park District for a private storage facility at 952 Kansas Avenue. Recommended for approval. Special Use Permit Application Item 1, SP 2018-47, Rafael Costello Carrera, renewal of a special use permit to park a work vehicle in his driveway at 2903 Shear Road. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 2, SP 2018-57, Luke Olenek with Sunflower Toast Service, LLC, for the temporary use of land for a modular office trailer at 452 South 26th Street. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 3, SP 2018-58, Tom Elliott and Merritt Bold with All American Trailer, LLC, to sell semi-trailers at 2330 State Line Road. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 4, SP 2018-61, Daryl Bunce with Crosswind Fellowship Church for a temporary storage container for the church at 2101 West 43rd Avenue. Recommended for approval for 1 year. Under Vacation Applications, Item 1, A-2018-3, Rizik Muslik with Muslik, LLC, vacation of an alley between 609 and 631 Central Avenue. Recommended for approval. Item 2, U/E 2018-4, Mark Christian with AccuServe Survey Company, vacation of utility easements at 4807 North 124th Court. Recommended for approval. Plan review application, Item 1, PR-2018-19, Monsignor Stuart W. Swetland with Donnelly College, preliminary plan review for a building addition and parking at 608 North 18th Street. Recommended for approval. Master Plan Amendment Item 1, MP-2018-2, amendment to the Rosedale Master Plan to include the 47th Avenue Complete Street Plan. Recommended for approval. Under Miscellaneous Ordinances, Item 1, an ordinance affirming approval of the 47th Street Master Plan Amendment. Recommended for approval. Item 2, an ordinance rezoning property at 4141 and 4244 North 67th Street from R1 Single Family District to AG Agricultural District. Recommended for approval. And Item 3, an ordinance rezoning property at 5015 Gibbs Road from CP1 Plan Limited Business District to CP3 Plan Commercial District. Recommended for approval. Those are all the items on the Planning and Zoning Consent Agenda.
Thank you. Does any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on the Planning and Zoning Consent Agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the Planning and Zoning Consent Agenda will be voted on by one vote to follow the recommendation of the Planning Commission. Are there any set-asides? We have, sir, please come forward. Your name and address, sir?
I'm Chris Kazilla, and 601, 603, 605 Central Avenue, and 10 South Tremont is the property we're talking
Which item would you like to set aside?
about. Vacation applications number 1, A-2018-3.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
I'd like to set aside item MP 2018-2, amendment to the Rosedale Master Plan. That will allow Zach Flanders to give a presentation on the complete street plan, which also means we'll set aside F1. That's an ordinance affirming approval of. Any other items? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Roll call, Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries 10-0.
So that takes us to set aside item C1, Rizik Muslit with Muslit LLC, number A-2018-3. I'd ask staff to make some opening remarks. Sir, we need staff to make some opening remarks.
I beg your pardon?
I'm sorry, our staff will make some opening remarks, and then
Okay.
I have an opportunity. Thank you.
So the item before you is the partial vacation of an alley that runs northwest between Central Avenue and the alley to the south of it. The portion being vacated is wholly contained. Sorry, we tested it beforehand, but it's ringing now. Test, still more. Okay, there we go. Well, we'll try it here. The vacation request is wholly on the property of the applicant, and there has go down a bunch, go down like 20. All right, let's try this. Nope. We'll just try this one. Is this better? Okay. So the vacation request goes up to a new retaining wall, which is in front of an old retaining wall. You could never go through this alley because of the wall and the grade separation there. So that we've recommended approval of the alley vacation wholly on this property because you couldn't access any other property from this portion of the alley as it's currently described. It was requested once, maybe twice before, but it included the whole alley or a portion of the alley adjacent to the adjoining property owner's property, which gave them certain rights related to requesting denial. Those rights don't exist on this particular request, and so we've recommended approval.
Thank you. I'd ask the applicant to please come forward, present your application. Please state your name and address for the record.
G'day, Will Anderson, BHC Roads, 712 State Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas, representing Rizik Muslit for the vacation of this portion of the alley. The alley, as Mr. Richardson has said, it's been an on again, off again. You cannot pass through that. Currently, we have development plans going through on that site to clean up that corner, and basically the vacation or the lack of vacation has held up that application or that development to move forward. We get the application approved for vacation, then we'll be able to shift forward and finish off that corner and make it look a lot better.
Thank you, sir. I'll now open the public hearing. Ask if there's anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this petition. Seeing none, I would ask, is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition?
What is that?
And please come forward, state your name And your address.
I'm Chris Kazilla. Again, we own 601, 603, 605 Central, and 10 South Tremont. Our son lives in the apartment above 601, and our plumbing business is in 603. 603 is the white building on the new roof, and the corner building is 601. We understand from previous hearings and subsequent denials that no action was to be taken on this project until the litigation is done, and that is yet to be fulfilled. Mr. Muslett sued me for adverse possession. That's still February the 23rd, 2016. And it's been pushed because of Mr. Muslett's attorney asking to have it continued till January of 2019. Mr. Richardson said prior that the alley need not be abandoned, even part of it, since it was already included in the plan. Even part of it. Why now is the reason to abandon this alley? Is it because the new retaining wall is in the wrong place and this is the easiest way to remedy the situation? If that's the case, why not sell it rather than give it to the guy? On the vacation applications that the legal staff brought up at the Planning Commission, this was handed out at the Planning Commission. Number 3 says the public will suffer no loss or inconvenience thereby. Well, no suffer, no loss. We're giving up a piece of property rather than selling it to the man. The city staff did the research of the Kansas statutes for the prayer of vacation applications, not Mr. Muslett. Owning more than 50% of the real estate surrounded by this public property adjacent to this project, we pray that the commission deny this request to abandon the alley between 609 and 631 Central. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor or offer any comments? If there are no further comments or questions from the public, I will close the public hearing. Would the petitioner like to make any additional comments, closing comments? Nope. All right. Do any of the members of the commission have questions or comments? Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Richardson, does the vacation of this alley depend on the outcome of the litigation, hinge in any way on the outcome of the litigation? My understanding is that Mr. Muslett's contractor did in fact cross a property line that was the initial basis for the litigation. Does that have a bearing on this case?
I think Mr. Moore should answer that question.
It's difficult to know without, I mean, I don't fully appreciate the private litigation, but in vacating an alley, the typical result is that the adjoining the parcel is divided, the alley would be divided between the adjoining property owners. So whoever the outcome of that litigation, whatever that is, if they're an adjoining property owner, they would get half the vacated out. So in that regard, I don't believe that it would make any difference.
Because the applicant has the properties on either side of the alley to be vacated.
Correct.
My initial instinct is to follow the Planning Commission and to say, since this alley is entirely contained within property owned by the applicant, to go ahead and overturn. But if in fact any aspect of this hinges on the outcome of the current litigation, then I would be hesitant to move forward until I was clear that this litigation had no bearing on our ability to vacate this alley.
If it's totally surrounded by one property owner, it's hard to imagine how it would make a difference. I mean, if one property owner has the property on both sides is a portion to be vacated, there's no benefit to a non-owner.
I might clarify that previously when that statement was made, it was related to a different type of application that included the whole alley. So This application stops right about here. The previous applications either included the whole north-south alley or came up to the property line.
Commissioner Kane?
Mr. Moore, would we be affected one way or the other by a lawsuit?
No, we're not a party to the lawsuit.
Yeah,
And
but
it's
if
hard.
we vote one way or the other, could we get in trouble?
I don't believe so. I mean, not that the action can't be appealed to district court for review by district court, but it'd be the same standard as any other planning and zoning decision, whether it's arbitrary and capricious. So.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve as recommended by the Planning Commission. Yeah. That's it.
We have a motion.
Second?
And we have a second, if that was not a question. Commissioner Bynum has a question.
My question is, the motion then would be to approve the vacation application. Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the vacation application. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call, Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Bilbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Murguia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you. That takes us to our next set-aside items, which is item number MP-2018-2, amendment to the Rosedale Master Plan to include the 47th Avenue Complete Street Plan, and item F1. Again, I asked that this be set aside in order that we could apprise the commission of the Complete Street Plan. Apparently there was quite a bit of good discussion at Planning and Zoning, so it seemed appropriate for the commission to see the presentation.
Thank you. One of the things that came out of the Rosedale Master Plan was the idea that 47th Street could be used differently than it is today. And so in conjunction with Westwood, we applied for a MARC grant, which we received, and that resulted in this 47th Street Complete Street Plan. And I'm going to ask Thomas Moore with Bike Walk Kansas City, who developed the plan in conjunction with other consultants in the city and city staff from both cities, to give a brief presentation. And I'll just note that Zach Flanders in our office was the project manager for this. And I think they did a great job with it and worked through some issues with the different types of properties along 47th Street. So with that, Thomas, thank you.
Thank you, members of the commission. I just want to briefly describe for you what is it that we studied, what did we learn, and what recommendations came out of that work. So as was mentioned, this process was a partnership between several jurisdictions. It was a Mid-America Regional Council grant, and with work and partnership between the cities of Westwood, the Unified Government, and the city of Roland Park. The geographic scope of the study was along the 47th Street corridor between Rainbow Boulevard and Mission Road, as well as some of the surrounding neighborhood connections. And our goal with this process was to look at how we could enhance the walkability, bikeability, and livability of the corridor, and in particular to explore whether a reconfiguration of travel lanes along 47th Street could help us do that. And as part of the study, there was an in-depth traffic analysis to look at what sort of impacts on automobile traffic on the corridor reconfiguration of travel lanes might have. And as I mentioned, we also looked at some of the surrounding neighborhood connections to see how we could better connect the neighborhood to the corridor businesses and amenities that are available. This process is built on several decades of work and planning by corridor stakeholders. There's been a lot of work that's gone into this corridor, and I think you're beginning to see the fruits of those efforts on 47th Street today in terms of the businesses and other improvements that are continuing to flourish there. Most recently, the City of Westwood did a comprehensive plan, and the Unified Government Rosedale Master Plan both identified 47th Street as an area where potential improvements could support goals for the surrounding neighborhoods. As we began this process, we engaged community stakeholders in a variety of ways. One of the ways we did that was to go out and walk the corridor. So we experienced firsthand what it was like to cross the street without a walk signal. We walked along the sidewalks or areas where sidewalks were missing. We enjoyed the shade of street trees or suffered from the lack thereof, and had a lot of good conversations about what the corridor felt like today, what people's expectations were for the future, and how it could be better moving forward. We also engaged people through a public meeting where we presented a lot of our design ideas and solicited feedback, had a lot of good conversations about those alternatives, and conducted an online survey with several hundred respondents, and had really positive and representative turnout from stakeholders in all of the jurisdictions around the corridor. Among the issues that people talk about, I don't think any of these are a surprise for those who are familiar with the corridor. Concerns about the speed of traffic, and in some cases, traffic movements or operations that could be dangerous or feel dangerous in certain situations. A desire to better accommodate all different kinds of users on the corridor, to look at sidewalk connections. There's many places where either there's no sidewalk at all, or the sidewalk is in disrepair, or the sidewalk is very close to the street where traffic's moving quickly that makes it uncomfortable. There was discussion about improved pedestrian crossings, about how to manage parking in an area where new businesses are going in and more and more people are being attracted to the corridor. A conversation about how we accommodate bus users and bicycle users on the corridor, both of which exist today, but neither of which have any particular infrastructure to support their use on the corridor. And then a conversation overall about what improvements could be made that could support the business activity and continue the positive progress in the corridor. These are a little bit hard to read, but I'll describe them for you. Just a summary of the survey when we asked people what are your top concerns, both in the public meeting and in the online survey. There was general consensus around a desire to improve pedestrian connections, to improve bicycle facilities, to improve landscaping and street lighting, and to have a corridor that works well for all users. Concerns about traffic flow and parking, generally rated less important, both online and in person. There's a lot of tools in the toolbox we have to look at improvements to these streets. Everything from how we stripe the road, to how we manage signals on the corridor, to what sort of signage and seating and furniture and other amenities that we have. And we talked to stakeholders about their preferences there as well. And again, we had consensus throughout the process on the priorities. Improved crossings, improved sidewalks, bicycle infrastructure, lighting, and landscaping. One of the alternatives that we were specifically looking at as part of this process is a road diet. And a road diet is essentially a reconfiguration of the road from 4 travel lanes to 3 travel lanes, where the center lane is a shared left turn lane. And this is an appealing option for a number of reasons, not least of which it is one of the quickest to implement and least expensive ways to have a major impact on the feeling of a street. For the most part, it can be implemented with paint at a relatively low cost, but the benefits can be significant if a corridor is a good candidate for a road diet. From research and experience around the country, we know that a reconfiguration from 4 lanes to 3 has a major impact on pedestrian crashes, a major impact on automobile crashes, major improvements in safety. And in addition, the reconfiguration of the lanes provides us extra space on the road that we can use to accommodate some of those other facilities and amenities that corridor stakeholders said were important to them. So if 47th Street is a good candidate for a road diet. There are a lot of benefits that we could see from it. So part of our traffic analysis was looking at whether 47th Street would work. And as a rule of thumb, if a street has less than 20,000 cars per day, it's a potential candidate for a road diet like this. 47th Street has just under 10,000 cars today, so it's well in the sweet spot in terms of being able to accommodate the traffic on the corridor with these changes. The configuration of the side streets and how the road diet would transition at the end are both favorable in this corridor. So 47th Street checks all of the boxes in terms of high-quality road diet candidate. We also looked at very specific traffic performance, particularly at the intersections, which are sort of where the rubber meets the road in terms of how this would work. And for example, at the intersection of 47th and Mission, we saw that a configuration from 4 lanes to 3 would maintain the same overall level of service for automobiles through the corridor. And level of service means how congested or not congested the traffic flow is. And currently, the corridor operates at a level service C, and it would continue to operate at a level of service C after these improvements, according to our traffic analysis. And a level of service C is, again, a good place to be. It means traffic is operating, the intersection is functioning, but the road isn't completely empty. So it doesn't mean that you've overbuilt your infrastructure in a way that resources could be allocated in some other way. So our recommendations. In the near term, we're recommending a road diet on 47th Street, again, from reconfiguring from a 4-lane section to a 3-lane section. We're recommending beginning with a striping project that works within the existing curb lines. A striping project is pretty straightforward to do in the near term. It allows you to work out any sort of kinks or issues to solicit community feedback before more substantial infrastructure improvements are made. And it also can be implemented with relatively low cost because it's primarily paint. With the extra space that would be available with that lane reconfiguration, we're recommending buffered bike lanes along the corridor, and all of these improvements would occur within the existing curb lines of the roadway. At the 47th and Mission intersection, we're recommending that those bike lanes continue through the intersection. That provides a safe and comfortable experience for cyclists as they travel through the intersection. This was one of our options that reduced the crossing width for pedestrians crossing 47th Street, which was a major concern that we heard from people. And also having the travel lanes be located more close to the center of the road helps trucks to turn a little bit more easily. And this was an issue we heard, truck turning at this intersection. Trucks have a habit of clipping the utility boxes and poles and other infrastructure on the corridor. Other improvements in the near term, recommending a center pedestrian island refuge at the crossing of Fisher Street on the Unified Government side and Belinda Road on the Westwood side, in addition to other crosswalk improvements. Right now, the only signalized crosswalks where you can cross 47th Street are at Mission and at Rainbow, which are a half-mile apart. That's a very long distance between crossings in an environment like this. And so being able to enhance a crosswalk in the middle will have a traffic calming benefit that helps to make the intersection a little bit safer and enhance amenities for people using the corridor. We're also recommending a mid-block crossing near the existing bus stop across from Walmart. This is a place where many people were crossing today. They were sort of walking out into traffic without any protection or improvement. And this was an opportunity to support infrastructure that could make the corridor safer and more comfortable for all users. This is a quick cost breakdown of these near-term improvements with an estimated cost of approximately $130,000 for everything that I just described as near-term improvements. And those costs we anticipate would be shared in some manner between the various jurisdictions participating in the project. In the long term, there was strong support for more substantial improvements, and in particular, looking at a reconstructed curb along the corridor that would provide a raised path for both pedestrians and cyclists that's separated from the road, and as I said, above the curb. And so these improvements are long-term because they're more substantial. They require reconstructing of the curbs. But as we discussed with the Plan Commission, we encourage looking at implementation in terms of improvements of opportunity. So where there are new developments or improvements already happening, or in the case of the city of Westwood, where they may be considering repairing some failing sidewalks in any case, there's an opportunity if reconstruction was going to occur or resurfacing of the road was going to occur already, that these longer term improvements could be made and could be worked toward. In the long term, there's also an opportunity to include an additional right turn lane at 47th and Mission. This would require reconstruction of the curb. It could be implemented without loss of any parking or access for the adjacent businesses. However, those improvements we would recommend would require additional conversations with those business owners going forward in the future to ensure that any possible modification supported and did not in any way hinder the operation of their business and people's enjoyment of those businesses. And in the long term, we also look at potential transit improvements. So there's an opportunity to look at islands for bus boarding that can both enhance the efficiency of the bus service through the corridor and separate bikes and people from bus boarding. So it's a safety benefit as well. But it's a long-term recommendation because it does require some additional hard infrastructure improvements in the corridor. The total estimated cost for these long-term improvements coming out of the plan is a little under $1.5 million. I'll share with the Commission that the City of Westwood, who was one of the initial applicants on this project, after the completion of the plan, submitted a grant request to the Mid-America Regional Council for these improvements, and it was one of the top scoring road improvement projects on the Kansas side. So it has a very high likelihood of federal grant funding to support this project moving forward. Those final projects aren't completely approved at this time, but I'd say the likelihood is very high that there would be federal grant funding support these improvements in whatever manner is compatible with the goals of all of the surrounding jurisdictions. And then finally, I wanted to share that while the project scope focused on the area between Rainbow and Mission, we're also thinking about what happens west of Mission. So this is an area where on the unified government side, there aren't any sidewalks at the moment. There's uncomfortable ditch with a lot of utilities that makes it challenging to construct a new sidewalk. So we're looking at ways to be creative with, again, working within the existing curb lines with existing infrastructure to look at how we can extend pedestrian improvements further west. And that's particularly important on the unified government side because there's a number of apartment complexes and schools west of here that would benefit greatly from having these improvements extended. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I'd now open the public hearing. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this? Seeing none, is there anyone who'd like to speak against? Seeing none, any closing comments from the petitioner? Nope. Any members of the commission have any questions or comments? Very good. I'd entertain a motion and a second. Now we can consider both of these E1 and F1 together, one vote.
Correct.
Thank you.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Markley. Walters. Philbrick.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you. Next, we have 3 items under the Planning and Zoning non-consent agenda. Item number 1, Ms. Godsell. Should I read that? Item number 1 is change of zone application number 3155, Kelly Harabi with Prairie Fire Development Group for a change of zone from AG Agricultural District to TND Traditional Neighborhood Design District for a mixed residential redevelopment at 10700 Lathrop Avenue. Planning Commission voted 5-1 to approve. Mr. Richardson, make some opening remarks.
Thank you. While Zach's moving the map around to this area, it's located on Hutton Road, just south of Leavenworth Road. It's adjacent to where the new park and fire station will be built on Hutton Road. It was approved, I believe, in 2006 or 7 as a traditional neighborhood design, but then the recession happened and the development never went forward. Mr. Raby's group has come forward with a plan to use part of that old infrastructure and do a new plan. It's a little bit higher density, but it's a 55 and over age-restricted market rate community. And with that, I'll let Mr. Raby speak to his project.
Sure. Thanks, Rob. My name is Kelly Raby. I'm at 416 West 62nd Street, Kansas City, Missouri. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. This is a project we invested in, purchased the land last October and have had a few community meetings on this, have looked at it a couple different ways, and what we're proposing to do now is a 55 and older maintenance-free community that's going to consist of for sale and for rent product in a configuration of duplexes, villas, and single-family homes. We're looking at 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom units. I think some of the concessions we made with the planning department here was initially we were going to come in with a couple apartment buildings. We've gotten rid of those, and we're really focusing more on the duplex and triplex and villa model. So really not much more beyond that. We're really excited about this project, have a lot of interest, have a lot of people already calling us about getting on our wait list, either to purchase or for rent, and I can answer any questions or concerns you may have at this point.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone who would like to speak in support of this? Seeing none, is there anyone in opposition who would like to speak? All right. If there are no further comments or questions, I'll close the public hearing. Would the applicant need to make any closing comments?
You go first.
Thank you. I'd entertain questions or concerns from the commission. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you. I appreciate the project and all the work that's been done on a lot of fronts to bring this tonight. I just have a comment, and you heard it when you very first met with Commissioner Kane and I, and that is that lighting is a must, an absolute must. That's you can't build 55 and over housing and not put street lights in. It's
absolutely.
Not going to happen.
And with the infrastructure will be to city standards, so unified government standards. So we will definitely have lighting and a very strong amenity base here with all the improvements going on Hutton Road, as well as a central amenity with a clubhouse, swimming pool, those types of things. So
and
certainly
I
we'll work with
I
the
appreciate it, and I just want to say it's sorely needed in the community. We really appreciate it that you're bringing the project.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kane.
You know, there are a lot of rumors about your project.
Oh, I know.
And you did a good job of squelching some of them. There's still lots of concern out there.
You bet.
But we're going to hold you to the 55 and older.
Oh, absolutely. Having been involved with at least 3 55 and older projects out in this part of the unified government and invested in a lot of them and put a lot of time in them over the last 10 years, we see a very strong opportunity for the market here. Our market study shows, at least in this quadrant of the metropolitan area, there's a need for 3,000 of these units. We're proposing to do approximately 230. So we're not even tapping, I think, the market potential out here. The access, the visibility, the amenities. We're really excited about this project and be able to take something that, started 10 years ago and kind of sit here and just kind of withered on the vine, so to speak. And we're happy to be back here and make this investment, make a long-term investment in this community and address a demand that's out here very strong and looking forward to continuing to do that. So.
And so far, you've been really good, and if you give us some more green space, that would be even better.
You bet. And actually, as a side note to that, our kind of concept here is to integrate a lot of green area, walking trails. We're planning on putting in a few orchards, maybe some vineyards, little farmers markets. So we're trying to really redefine, as I just turned 50 this year, we're really defining what 55 and older
qualify in 5 years.
Because I can live here in about 5 years, so which is kind of sad. But we really want to capitalize on what 55 and older maintenance-free communities mean in this current market we're in, and it's active lifestyles. It's people that want to get out, be in the environment, socialize with one another, and I think with our design, with the branding and the marketing and our partners, the types of things we want to integrate in here, I think it's really going to create a community that's different than anything that's offered in the entire metropolitan area. So not only are we going to be able to satisfy the current demand within the unified government, within Wyandotte County, we can certainly bring in demand from outside of the market and bring more folks into the county. So.
Well, now that I'm 58, 55 and older means having a public restroom within a minute of each other.
There you go.
Commissioner Bynum, did you have another comment?
One more brief comment, and that is that to the 55 and over piece of this, the HOAs and the covenants and such can provide legal, you already know this, I'm saying it maybe more for the public, can provide the legal authority to hold true to the 55 and over.
Yeah, absolutely.
That can be codified.
Absolutely.
And it carries legal weight.
Absolutely.
Just so the public has confidence that measures can be put in place that keep you at your word.
Yeah, absolutely. And, whether it's a for sale product that we do or a for rent product, whoever purchases here or leases here, it's going to be into their covenants and restrictions that they have to follow the rules of the community, and if they don't, then there's other measures we
There are severe consequences.
Absolutely.
That could be paid. With that, I'll make a motion for approval.
We have a motion. Commissioner Bynum? Philbrook, I'm sorry.
I'll second it if you let me ask him a question.
Go for it.
Sure.
So I know that you're going to be active out west, and I know you're definitely going to be active down east. So District 8 would really like to have 55 and older as well.
Hey,
so I'm putting this out to the whole universe. We would like to have market rate 55 and older, and I have a spot
You bet.
I'd like to put them.
You bet. I mean, we've made a lot of investment in this community. We're getting ready. I think we're on the agenda later with a land trust property to do a project in Commissioner Johnson's district. We're very bullish on Wyandotte County. I think there's a great opportunity here, not only out west, east, but there's a lot of momentum in what we do, not necessarily in the 55 and older market, but also in the workforce housing market. So we're here, we're a proven entity, and we're committed, and we're looking forward to more opportunity.
I can guarantee you there's plenty of folks who have left the county who didn't want to.
Absolutely.
So
no, we hear
bring
that.
them back.
That's why we bought these 48 acres here and are looking at very forward to getting it developed. So.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call, Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2 is a special use permit, application number SP-2018-62. Martha Medina with Manhattan Bar and Grill for a restaurant and drinking establishment with live entertainment at 812 South 12th Street. The Planning Commission voted 5-2 for denial. Mr. Richardson, make some opening remarks, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the crux of this is the neighborhood was very concerned about parking and trash. This facility has had this type of historic use, but I think that was the crux of the vote. There was a motion to approve that failed with a tie vote, and then there was a second motion of denial that was approved 5-2. So that's how it comes to you this evening.
I'd ask the petitioner to please come forward to present her application.
Good evening. My name is Pearl King. My office is at 827 Armstrong Avenue,
Pearl, would you pull the, thank you.
Suite 200, Kansas City, Kansas. I'm here on behalf of Manhattan Bar and Grill. The owner, Martha Medina, is here with me also this evening. As Mr. Richardson stated, we were before the Planning Commission on this property. There has been no licensed business at this location since 2013. There was a parking variance that was obtained in November of 2016 and a special use permit granted December of 2016 by another person. They were unable to obtain their additional licensing, so the business never opened. When Ms. Medina went to look for a property, she did her due diligence and looked for a property that was correctly zoned, that the business was for the same use that she intended it, a bar and grill. She had spoke with planning and zoning, knew that this property had received a special use permit in the past, so she proceeded to make her investment, purchase the property, and also intends to reside in the apartment that's above the restaurant and bar. Staff had recommended approval of this special use permit for a 1-year period. I would also be in agreement with staff. You find that a business is more successful, its operation is smoother, and it fits in with the community better when it's well regulated, when it is well operated. Ms. Medina comes here not as someone who just has a fluke idea. She's operated restaurants and bars in the past. She knows what it's going to take. She has, at the suggestion of Mr. Richardson and staff, went around and talked with some neighbors. Even after the denial, she's committed to this property. She's already invested a significant amount of money, upwards of $25,000 at this point, with a significant amount of that $15,000 being invested in kitchen equipment and repairs. Unlike what it's been portrayed by and believed to be by some of the neighbors, this isn't a nightclub. This is going to be a restaurant, a bar and grill, with a full menu. I have a copy with me and one also for staff of the proposed menu. It's 3 pages. We're not talking about just bar food. We're looking at a full staffed menu for lunch and dinner. The entertainment that we'd like to have would be on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It would be in the means of a DJ, karaoke, occasionally a live band, but for the most part, when it would be live, it would be more of an acoustic and not an electric. I know that 2 of the main concerns, always when you're dealing with alcohol and entertainment specifically, is safety and security and the noise involved. There are some cameras and lights on the premises, but before we'd open, we would make sure that there was full lighting, operable cameras that would cover the parking area, the front of the building, and also this back alleyway. I do know that there have been in the past the businesses in there did not have a good reputation. And I know that there's other bars in the area. I just don't want Miss Medina's business and her plan to be judged by what others' actions were in the past. I think giving her a permit for 1 year would give her the opportunity to prove herself, prove her business, and also let the neighborhood see that a bar and restaurant can coexist in a residential neighborhood and be a good addition to that neighborhood and a good member of the community. And that is exactly what we would like to do. I'd be glad to answer any other questions that you might have. I'm very familiar with Miss Medina, and I've worked with her for over 9 years, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King. I'd open the public hearing. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of SP-2018-62? All right. You'd like to speak in favor? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please come forward. State your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less.
My name is Rodolfo Ibarra. I live in 1262 Osage. I know this Marta. She's been a good business. She's been having a good business for a while. Like I said, I live just around the corner. I don't see anything wrong with opening another business in there because the bar on the corner, they don't let us in. The other bar, I don't like it. So I think it's a good idea to let them open the business for a lot of reasons, for taxes, for business, I don't know really exactly what to say, but I think it's a good idea to let him run the business again. It's been a bar since '79, since I remember. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak in favor? Please come forward, state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Abigail Ibarra, and I live at 1262 Osage Avenue. And, I just want to say I think this is a good idea for the community. I will be working with Miss Marta as a cook. And, I like the fact that I would live about a block and a half away. So that just brings business into the community and, a fun family atmosphere. Where we could go hang out and just have some good food, music, and drinks. Why not? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak on this item in opposition? If so, please come forward to the podium. State your name and address. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name's Larry Sprang. I own 1111 Pennsylvania and 1115 Pennsylvania. We just moved back here. I'm a Bishop Ward graduate, born and raised here, class of '84. We moved away for a lot of years, came back to find a really great community down here. One thing we don't need is another nightclub that's open till 2 a.m. in the morning, disturbing everyone in the area, trash, violence. Parking is a big issue, as your staff has noted. We had some conversations with the fire department. There's 2 streets they could possibly park on. Taylor, Pennsylvania. If they try to park on the other side of Pennsylvania, there's no crosswalk unless you go to Osage. All of those streets can only have parking on one side of the street and still allow access for emergency vehicles. It's not posted that way, so if they're going to allow this to happen, it probably needs to be posted because people coming to the bar and restaurant are not going to know that they can't park on both sides of those streets and block all of the emergency vehicle access. There's residents upstairs, so the few spots that they do have are going to be taken by that. I assume they're going to have no handicap parking because there's none slated there right now. So those are all parking issues that are going to arise. None of the residents, for the most part, on Taylor or Pennsylvania there have off-street parking, so they rely on that parking. As you can see, there's quite a few vehicles on there, even in this picture.
rely on parking on the street for their houses, which makes it difficult to put another, I don't know what their capacity is going to be. At the other meeting, they stated 150. Even if it's only 50, 20 or 30 cars trying to park on those two one-way streets. The bar issue, we have no problem with another business. We'd love to see another business in our area. I feel for her that she's invested money into it, and we have no problems with her as a person. We just don't want to see another 2 a.m. bar. We've got one you can actually see in the top of that picture, half a block away, 2 more down the road. The 2 down the road have 0 parking, and there's all kinds of issues with that. They park on the sidewalks, they park...
Sir, you have 1 minute to sum up your comments.
Thank you. So my other suggestion would be, if they want to open a restaurant, does it need to be 2 a.m.? Can we have this be a 10 a.m. normal type restaurant situation? The 2 a.m. part of it is a real problem when people are coming out of the bar at that time of night, disturbing the residents. That's really it. Stated my piece. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please come forward.
My name's Camille Arriaga, and I live at 1216 Taylor. And usually in the past, before 2013, when Cece's Bar and Grill, they called it Bar and Grill, but it was Cece's Bar, was open, they usually parked on our street, which was, like I said, Taylor. And so my concern is all of the parking space, they only have about 5 parking spaces in that property where the Manhattan's wants to open. And then also, where are the smokers going to be at? Are they going to congregate on the sidewalk? And now the people and the families that live on Pennsylvania and Taylor, when they want to cross the sidewalk or whatever, they're not going to be able to, because the smokers, as it is now at the casino bar on Osage, they're congregating on the sidewalk. So people have to avoid that, because there's usually 3 or 4 smokers congregating there with their patio furniture. And so my concern is the sidewalk and all of the parking spaces that are going to be used. They only have 5. And Ms. King said that the capacity is 150. So if, let's say, only 50 cars came, where are they going to park? And the trash and the bottles. And so I'm asking the city to please post those signs so the emergency vehicles can come to our house. I have an elderly uncle that lives at 1230 Taylor, and we've had to call the ambulance this year when he had a major stroke. And if the bar had been open and cars had been parked on both sides, I don't know how the ambulance would have arrived. So for that reason, I'm asking to please post signs, for the city to post signs, and I don't know who do I go to contact about those. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition?
I forgot to turn this in. We have signatures from about 7 or 8 other neighbors that weren't able to attend that are opposed as well.
Thank you. All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any comments or questions from the commission? Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you. And this is a question of staff. The question was raised about the streets not being marked only on one side, I believe, that was mentioned. Have we sent anyone down there to see if the department could deal with that?
We have not. That was the first time that I received any comment from the fire department on this, so I'm not sure when that was made or where it came from, but we can certainly do that.
Is there an area for the public smoking concern that was brought up that would inhibit or prohibit the movement of pedestrian traffic through that area?
Outside of their parking lot or in the alley, I think they would probably be on the sidewalk as described.
Thank you.
Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Mayor. So they only have 5 spaces.
Correct.
Yeah. There was a variance given in 2016 for another operation that was going to start, and the variance was for what?
To allow the operation of a very similar use with the 5 spaces that are on site.
With all the rest being street
Correct.
parking.
And the variance is still valid.
Okay, that was my question. Does the variance carry over to this new owner and new use?
Yes.
I guess I have, my big question is the same as Commissioner Burrows. I mean, if in fact Taylor, which is a reasonably narrow street, is too narrow for two sets of cars and emergency vehicles, then I think that would be a tremendous concern and disservice to the people who live on Taylor. The hours of operation have been brought up. Has there been any discussion? Is there any consideration of having hours that don't extend until 2 a.m.?
I think the applicant would be best to address that.
I spoke with Ms. Medina about other options that might appease the neighbors. I know that the special use permit that was granted in 2016 was identical to ours with the exception of the entertainment. We would be willing to withdraw the annual entertainment license and just have it as a bar and grill, a restaurant, drinking establishment with no entertainment that would be exactly what was approved in 2016. I would also, I did want to clarify one thing. It was brought up, I think it was Commissioner McKiernan, that this is a different use. This is exactly the same use that this building has had since, I believe, the 1970s. So it isn't a change of use. I also, you know, I want to reiterate, and it's not that I don't understand where these concerns are coming from, but I'm continuing to hear about other bars, about the casino bar and other locations, and I really would like this to be judged on the merits of this applicant at this time. And again, I believe that staff was correct, and I would agree with them that granting a one-year permit would, with the stipulations, and again, we would agree to drop the entertainment portion of this. I think it would be much more befitting than having a building that sits vacant. We would be willing, I know that when the parking was brought up before, Mr. Richardson also pointed out various areas where there could be parking where there's not residents. This is the first time I've heard the issue about the parking on one side of the street, but our understanding was that we had met the requirements needed for parking, and that was my understanding from the report from staff as well.
Commissioner Bynum?
Thank you. You know, we hear a lot of stories about people who purchase property that they want to do something with it and they didn't check to find out if they could before they made the investment. But that doesn't sound like the case. She did check for if she could use this parcel. And our record indicated the answer was yes. So we can't hold her to that this time. It's just
Commissioner,
a comment.
she was told she had to get a special use permit, and that's a
understand,
public
but
process.
also
But
the
yes, that's a
record-
qualified yes.
I do understand that, but the record and the history of the location
Correct.
would lead her to believe that that was reasonable, being that one had just been approved less than 2 years ago.
I agree.
So, if I were looking to purchase a piece of property and I saw an approval for a special use permit less than 2 years ago, I might also believe that was an investment I could make. So, we can't hold her to that. I'm concerned about the width of the street, like Commissioner McKiernan is, and I think we had a neighbor say, we want to make sure we direct you properly to staff that can help. There's a process. There's an application you can make for changes in your street. So we want to make sure that we communicate with you about that. I'm wondering about the possibility of setting any sort of conditions for approval to let her have a chance to operate her business. I don't know what those might be that this body would agree to. I think the elimination of the entertainment might be helpful. I'm hoping we can come to something that this body could allow at least a 1-year opportunity, maybe with stipulations that allowed us to put a halt to that. Were we to have a report prior than 1 year that those stipulations weren't being met?
Commissioner, on pages 5 and 6 of the staff report are the conditions under which we recommended approval.
Okay, when it was at planning?
Yes.
And do those include taking away the entertainment piece of this?
No.
So we could add that.
Correct.
I'm looking for
And
participation.
I don't know that we
from
need to
my-
have them go talk to the street department about that. I mean, I would follow that up on that and see if it needed to be marked one way or parking on one side only.
The only other comment I have is, I could be wrong, and I don't know if it makes it right or wrong, but it strikes me that there's a lot of businesses in Armourdale that don't have a lot of parking available.
That's accurate.
So it's not necessarily different. I'm looking for my commissioners to participate in the conversation about whether they're comfortable with giving a 1-year chance with an added stipulation to what was brought forward by staff.
Commissioner Burrows?
Thank you. Commission, just for clarification, the parking issue, I was hoping that, and I believe Mr. Richardson made comment to have the street department go down and verify the one-way parking, one side street parking, to ensure that we can get signage up down there. Maybe that'll help eliminate. You know, this is an area where it's going to provide jobs for the local community. It's another facility that'll be working and serving food in the community. It's an investment in the community. I'm not one to say what would make it work or not. The entertainment, that would be on management. I just hate to put criteria in place when a proposal came forward and it was initially granted, and in trying to accommodate a parking issue, they're wanting to change a business plan. That concerns me. I want to see them be successful. If they open a business, I want to see them succeed. I would just hope that we would give consideration to the variance that's already been granted, and the business has been granted in the past and with no problem. So,
Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to listen to the discussion, I had a couple of questions. One, even though I know that there had been, I guess, a permit in the past, it didn't sound like the person who received it actually went through with it. But I'm just curious if what the thought process was, if there were already bars in the area, why this seemed to be a good idea to come. I'm just curious about that. And also, if the owner is willing not to have live entertainment, is it still necessary to be there till 2 o'clock in the morning? Your menu looks delicious, by the way, but again, still, why would you need to be there so late? I think there should be some consideration also, as much as we all want to see businesses prosper, the heart and soul of the neighborhood or the people who live there, on a day-to-day basis. So I'm curious as to those questions.
I'll try to address some of that. I actually work, one of my areas that I specialize in is liquor licensing in the state of Kansas. It can be quite a convoluted affair. As I'm sure all of you know, the statutes change every year in July, and so I have to stay on top of that. We've always, and when I say we, I mean Kansas City, Kansas, especially bar and restaurant owners, have always had to compete with Missouri. Every one of the bar and restaurant owners that I've worked with, we have always requested that our licensing be from 10 to 2, primarily because that's what's allowed by statute, and that does give us the flexibility if, and I've seen many businesses do this, they can close earlier, business to justify, staying open that late. But primarily, the bars in KCK want to stay open till 2 because we're already closing earlier than our neighbors in Missouri. And we're wanting to keep that dollar here. So every hour earlier we close makes us less competitive to the people that are just right across, and also less competitive, quite frankly, to the other neighboring bars that are going to be open till 2. Why this was a location, in addition to the reasons I gave you, and that those other bars weren't a concern, is because we don't think of them as the same thing. They are very small, they're bars, only one of them does offer food. It's a very limited bar menu. I think what Marta wants to bring to this location is completely different. I hope that answers your question, kind of, as close as I can. I also, Martha reminded me when they went door to door, they did have some neighbors that they met that were in favor of this, that weren't able to be here, and I have the original of that and then a copy for that.
Thank you. Commissioner Philbrook.
Well, I really do believe that I'm in the same kind of quandary as Commissioner Burrows is, and as Commissioner Bynum, and that is looking at property, trying to go into business, checking ahead, seeing how it was used previously, that there was an active, active permit going on that was never utilized. I would have thought, well, okay, but then the other thing is too, I do want people to invest in our community and to make a livelihood. And yes, that menu looks wonderful. And it does look considerably different than the other bars that are down there. It's kind of like comparing apples and, I don't know, something grilled. But, so, I mean, there's really not much alike other than the fact that you guys, all of you, do produce liquor for us to drink. But having said that, I really think that a 1 year with the agreement of Mr. Richardson carrying through on making sure that the road down there is well marked as, parking on one side, that we should consider going through with this.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I usually don't provide a whole lot of comment, but I think as somebody who has persons parking in front of my personal residence as a matter of practice, I'm very concerned about the residents that live amazingly close to this building. There will be no doubt that there are going to be many evenings when people will be parking in front of the houses, and you have this open until 2 a.m. You're proposing having this open until 2 a.m. As someone that is familiar with those persons that don't live in my neighborhood, you can hear doors opening and closing. You can hear motorcycles starting up. You can hear cars that need a muffler starting up, and they do wake you from your sleep. And so I'm not really too thrilled about this. I tend to lean with the in-district commissioner, but I'd like to, the 2 a.m. just sounds a bit overbearing for the immediate neighbors that are very close to this property. And I'm all for pro-business, but I can only go by my own experience. I'm going to lean towards the in-district commissioner, but I do have those concerns.
All right, seeing no further comments or questions from commission, would the petitioner like to make any closing comments?
I know it's been a long night, so I'm going to be brief. I think that the stipulations that have been put in place are good ones. I understand the concern about the hours. I think if a business is monitored well and run well, you are aware of those things. I'm glad that we've become aware of the problems that these neighbors have experienced in the past, so that we're sensitive to those, that we monitor those situations. If a change, I would suggest if we were able to close at midnight during the weekdays, Monday through Thursday, be allowed to stay open till 2 on Friday and Saturday, midnight on Sunday, I think that would be a reasonable offer to make. And I would extend that.
Would you add no music to that?
Pardon me?
Would you add no music to that?
Yes, I've already said no music.
Okay.
We've already said we
Sunday
would
through
pull back.
Thursday till midnight. Is that what you said?
Sunday through Thursday till
and
midnight.
Saturday
till 2 a.m.
2 a.m. I make that motion.
I'll second that motion, just reiterating that the stipulations in the staff report, all the other stipulations are in force.
Can I clarify that so I have it written down correctly?
Correct.
Everything in the staff report, no live entertainment. Staff will look into parking on one side of the street only. And we would look at Osage, Taylor, Pennsylvania, and 12th. Operating midnight until midnight, Sunday through Thursday, and on Friday and Saturday till 2 a.m.
Commissioner Townsend?
As a point of clarification, we're talking about no music. I know they've withdrawn, I guess, the live entertainment. Are you talking about no music at all? I mean, for clarity, what are you talking about?
No live music.
Just no live entertainment. Okay. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Correct? Commissioner McKiernan.
I just want to be clear that this motion is to overturn, to reverse the decision of the Planning Commission.
And it will require 8 votes. Correct? 8 votes for. All right. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
No.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Murguia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries 9-1.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is plan review application number PR-2018-5, Pastor Luke Camrath with St. Luke's Lutheran Church for preliminary and final plan review for a church, retreat area, garden, and small-scale animal husbandry at 3200 North 10th Street. The Planning Commission voted 6-1 for approval. Mr. Richardson, opening remarks, please.
Thank you. This is an area between K5, or it's just south of K5. It's a large open tract. It's rather hilly, and the church has requested to use it as some outdoor space. They'll have a caretaker that lives there, and it's been recommended for approval with just 1 negative vote, and they're here to support their case.
What was the concern there? Head up. Yeah. Thank you, please. Ron has to stay here. Okay. You go out. One of them should stay in here. Yeah, well, I don't think so. Someone from the church. All right. Sorry, Mr. Camrath, if you would come forward to present your application, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Pastor Luke Camrath, 14 South 17th Street. I'm pastor of St. Luke's Lutheran Church. We're located at 722 Reynolds, so 7th and Central, a little bit north of there, up the hill. Pastor Michael May retired there 5 years ago. I took over for him. He's still around as pastor emeritus. Congregation's been there since 1899. Started with German European immigrants and has evolved along with the neighborhood in a beautiful way. A lot of great ministries that we've done in the neighborhood, including Riverview Health Clinic out of our building, as well as Metro Lutheran Ministry has a emergency services out of our building, food pantry. We do showers on Saturday mornings for homeless folks. A lot of great things, working with the youth of the neighborhood, et cetera. We purchased this 32 acres that you're looking at between Esplanade and North 10th Street. There's a 26-acre plot on the west, a 6-acre plot on the east. We would like to use this plot that was, we believe, abandoned for decades before we purchased it. We found remnants of potential meth labs up in the woods when we started clearing things out, and have hauled off literally hundreds of bags of trash. Anyways, our dream with this space is to expand our ministry in the sense of creating a church retreat. And so, to clarify, I think there's a little bit of a clerical error. We're not building a church on the site. We're going to still worship at 7th and Central. We just want to expand. This is a second site where we do a church retreat. So this will be focused on spiritual retreats, prayer retreats, escaping from the city. Maintaining the green space is one of our main objectives, and to create a welcome green space, first and foremost for our congregation, so we can worship and practice our faith. And then in addition, we always love our neighbors. It's just what we do. And so we'll get to know our neighbors and continue to work with them. We're gardening the space already, planting fruit trees. The small-scale animal husbandry is really just us being transparent. That's not a main objective of this property. We'll have maybe 2 goats, 12 chickens, all within current accepted code ordinance. It'll just be part of the process of connecting our congregation to the green space, to the earth, to the creation, then also neighborhood folks who are interested in that as well. So far, speaking of neighbors, we've heard nothing but really beautiful comments from our neighbors, from folks just walking down the street who wander up onto the property and ask us what we're doing and having great conversations with them, to folks who are interested in learning how to garden up on our property. And we've talked about allowing people to have little plots of land if they want to garden, because we have way more land than we would ever use. In addition, just this past week, we had a group picking up trash on 10th Street, and neighbors were stopping and saying hi and saying thank you for picking up the trash. Because it's just a wooded area along 10th Street, I think people think it's just a vacant dump lot sometimes. And so we've picked up couches and old doors and all sorts of stuff that we've hauled off. And so we believe using the space actively will beautify the neighborhood and revitalize maybe some of its energy around this particular plot that's been abandoned for a while. We've also been, lastly, interacting with the historic Northeast Midtown Association and Rachel Jefferson, and they have been, I believe, working in concert with the Northeast Area Master Plan, and Groundwork USA has recently approved this community as one of the 6 in the nation to work towards environmental beautification, breaking down racial divisions, and all sorts of different things like that. And we believe everything that we're doing is perfectly in lock and step with that. And so we thank the mayor and the commission for entertaining this. What we're asking for is approval to put a single-family dwelling for the residential caretakers, a driveway, the utilities, et cetera, all that's in the plan. Thank you.
I just make one correction. We have not received the Groundwork USA grant. We're one of 6 still competing. So sorry, no big news there tonight.
I apologize.
Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this? Yes, sir. Please come forward. State your name. Please, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Ralph Hayden. I live at 11 Viewcrest Drive in Kansas City, Kansas, and I live in a subdivision called The Homes. It's about a half mile north of 10th and Condero, and there's 345 housing units in that subdivision. And the property that is the Disciple Garden is only about a quarter of a mile north of where I live. And so we planned, and there's been a driveway put in the property and some land cleared on the property. We've had a couple outings there on the property already, and trees have been planted, and we're planning to plant gardens there in the future. And like Pastor Luke said, take home for a caretaker to be in the property and have all kinds of activities there at home, and a community hall attached to the home, so we can add lots of activities there for ourselves and for the community. And also, when the property was purchased a couple of years ago, the property was just there. Nobody was interested in that property at all. And we found the owners, and they didn't have any. There was no bidding more for the property, or anybody wanting to develop that property. So we have a great vision for the property, for ourselves, and for the community. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Right. Anyone else like to speak in favor of this? Seeing none, anyone like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close the public hearing. Any comments or questions from the commission? Petitioner like to make any closing comments? Oh, we do have one. Commissioner Townsend.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I think all of us appreciate when there are people who take interest in properties that look like they are in need of bettering of our community. It seems as though while Pastor Cameron, I spoke with him today, and his congregation were looking at this, we were trying to gear up for the Northeast Master Plan. So I would say that there are some other options that may not have been considered at the time the congregation bought that. But before we get into a fuller discussion of that, what I would really like to do, unless there has been an update in the packet, there was a letter from the Wyandotte County Conservation District dated sometime in January of this year. Pastor Cameron had not had the benefit of seeing that, and in that letter, that organization asked for more time to do an analysis, and barring that, they did not recommend going on with the project. So I'd like to know if there's been some update from Wyandotte County on that. And certainly Pastor Cameron should have the opportunity to look at that report, and I think the commission needs the benefit of all the information.
Commissioner, the report has been in the staff report for some time, so I'm not sure why the applicant hasn't had a chance to read it, because they've certainly had the staff report available to them. The Conservation District has certainly had plenty of time to expand on the report if they chose to, and they have not done so to this time.
Well, if that's the case, so it stands as we see it in the packet. What I would like to do is to have this go back. This is the first time it's come before us, that staff circle back with the conservation people to see if they're going to do any further updates. There was concern about soil erosion, particularly related to some of the activities that the new owners want to partake in. So, and this will also give the Pastor Cameron and the church an opportunity to talk with that group. I would like to see that done and then come back and we can have a fuller discussion with all the knowledge we're going to have about this. So that would be my motion.
We have a motion.
Was it to go back?
To send it back.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call. Kane.
No.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
No.
Philbrook,
No.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows, Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
No.
Murguia,
No.
Johnson.
Aye.
The motion is 4 to send back and 6 not to send back. So motion,
So the motion fails.
motion fails.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve in a second. We have discussion. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you. Since we're going to go ahead and rule on this, I just wanted to say again, I am not, and I shared this with Pastor Cameron. There's so many other things that I would like to see with District 1. We've got animal husbandry opportunities. We've got a lot of that in the western part. And some of the things that we've heard expressed at the sessions for the master plan didn't necessarily foresee something like this. I'd like to hear some more about the residential option that you're talking about, who's going to be there and for what purpose. And I guess my concern is I do not want to appear disingenuous to the group in the event that we get another option maybe for this land with regard to developers who might want to do something else as part of the Northeast Master Plan. And then the church come back at me and say, well, you didn't share that with us, not excited about it. So I'm just going to be really upfront, you know, about that. And we have so much of this already in the Northeast area. But Pastor, you want to talk about that now?
The residence is envisioned to be, first and foremost, a place for functionally a parsonage, if you're familiar with that. So my wife and I and our 2-year-old will be moving out to the property. We decided that to care for the property and to manage the spiritual retreats and the activities that, that Ralph Hayden was talking about for our congregation, that it really made sense for us to have a presence, and also, in our experience, a residential presence just makes for a more well-maintained and cared-for piece of land. So that's really the extent of the residence. And then, like I told Commissioner Townsend on the phone this afternoon, hospitality is just a part of our faith and our way of life. So we will, of course, welcome the people of our congregation into our home up there to participate in our faith life together. So does that fully answer? Okay.
That does add to the explanation, because the purpose shown in our packet seems to be a little bit different than that. And what about the cabins?
The cabins are, well, this original idea originated with having the idea of potential options for tiny homes in the future, but that's not according to code currently. So if tiny homes were to ever be approved by city planning, zoning, and all the different groups that need to be approved, we would potentially revisit coming before the Planning Commission and the commissioners to do something in regards to that. As far as cabin, we're talking about accessory structure under 120 square feet that would be used for simply a camping purpose. So for prayer, spiritual retreat that I spoke to you about, but just temporary, short-term for that getaway on the property space.
Okay, so for the retreat, okay, this is where I'm a bit confused. Are you talking about not putting cabins there now? So the space for a spiritual retreat would include what?
I'm making a differentiation, I don't know if it's the right lingo, between tiny home. So originally we were hoping for the idea of tiny homes, so permanent dwelling spaces. That's not allowable according to our city code and ordinance at this time. Mm-hmm. So we are not pursuing that at the moment. Mm-hmm. Instead, we are hoping to use, again, accessory structures following code under 120 square feet, just as a very simple space that we use for our folks for temporary prayer, spiritual retreating, if that makes sense. So again, sort of fitting under code what I would consider camping.
And this would be open to anyone or just the members of the church?
First and foremost, for the members of the church, I mean, it's not, we wouldn't be just inviting people off the street to come camp per se, but we would have spiritual retreat programs potentially. None of that's exactly been figured through in regards to the details.
Mr. Richardson?
So does this include overnight camping in this cabin? Because I believe camping would require an additional special use permit. We weren't aware of the overnight camping issue related to the cabin.
Yes, that was the vision. I did not. I'm potentially misread code. I thought you could camp on your own property with certain limitations without a special use permit.
If I owned the property, that would probably be the case, but you're opening up to people that aren't owners. So we need to revisit that. If it requires a special use permit, we'll have him go back through. If it doesn't, then it would be approved as you said it. If it was to be approved, it would be approved this evening.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Kane. Aye. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
No.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Murguia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries 9-1.
Thank you. That concludes the planning and zoning portion of tonight's meeting. We'll now move to the regular portion of our agenda. Does any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on the regular consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the consent agenda will be voted on by one vote.
Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Murguia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries 10-0.
Okay, that concludes the portion of our regular meeting. I adjourn us in that capacity. We now call us back to order as the Land Bank Board of Trustees. Does any member?
Second.
We have a roll call and a second. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Murguia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.